Good morning, Mike. Did you want to do a sound check this morning?
Morning, everyone. This is Chair French, and I'm convening the regularly scheduled business meeting of the Kansas Corporation Commission for this Tuesday, October 19th, 2021, joined by my colleagues, Commissioner Keene and Commissioner Duffy. On today's agenda, we have 16 consent agenda items and one noticed item. We will begin with consideration of our consent agenda. Commissioners, you've had the opportunity to review all the proposed items on the consent agenda, and let me ask at this time whether you have any questions about those items. I'll begin with Commissioner Keene.
None for me, thank you.
And Commissioner Duffy.
Good morning, Chair French. I have no questions, and I move adoption of the consent agenda items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the items on the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. The consent agenda is approved. We now move to our noticed item. This is in docket number 22 TRAM 174 PEN. And it is a proposed penalty order in that docket. Our presenter for this item is Mr. Hassan Latif. Good morning, Hassan.
Good morning, Commissioners. The penalty order before you is the result of an investigation of Osmeyer Hay Farm Incorporated, a common carrier that hauls grain, feed, hay operated out of Oakley, Kansas. During the investigation, special investigators Penny Fryback and Erica Pargas noted the violations they found, and the order before you assesses penalties for 6 of those violations, resulting in $10,750 in total penalties. The violations included a $5,000 penalty for permitting a driver to prepare a false record of duty status. In total, 34 instances of this violation were found. A $3,000 fine for failure to stay within the legal gross weight limits. In total, 32 instances of this violation were found. There was also a $1,000 fine for failure to conduct a controlled substance test on a randomly selected driver during the selection period, and a $1,000 penalty for failure to ensure that each driver selected for random alcohol and controlled substance testing had an equal chance of being tested. The remaining violations were for failures related to the carrier's drug and alcohol testing program and a failure to provide corrective action plan as a result of a previous penalty. Staff believes that the $10,750 in penalties is the proper course of action to ensure compliance with the applicable motor carrier rules and regulations. And with that, staff recommends approval of this order. I and staff, our Deputy Director Gary Davenport are here to, and Director Mike Hamey are here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Hassan. Well, let me ask at this time whether the commissioners have any questions about this proposed order, and I will begin again with Commissioner Keene.
Thank you, Chair French. No questions. Once again, a comment. I really commend our transportation staff, and again, those folks that are out in the field for their diligence and their thoroughness in conducting these investigations. Hassan, I think you gave an excellent summary of the issues that are in play in this particular instance. They're serious. I think the violations, as the staff recommends, I mean, the violations and the penalty recommendations recommended by the staff recommends are entirely appropriate. And my kudos and commendations to our staff for its excellent work on this docket.
Thank you. Commissioner Duffy, any questions?
Thank you, Chair French. Yes, I do have a question for Mr. Hamey. These violations were found in a routine investigation. Is that correct? You're on mute.
You want me to go ahead and fill in, Mike?
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Duffy, this was a follow-up investigation to a previous investigation we had on this company. And so this was just our normal follow-up that we would do following a previous investigation. And because of the violations discovered the first time through, we did a on-site review, comprehensive. And, you know, there were not any repeat violations because the hours of service violations, they had none. And so this time there are violations because they had records, but they were false. And then the overweights weren't discovered the last time. And then the drug and alcohol, I don't believe they had a drug and alcohol testing program the first time we went in. So that's where this came from.
Okay, so this company had some issues before. You go back, you complete a follow-up. And again, the fine of over $10,000 is not inconsequential. I mean, that is significant for motor carriers. I am the 34 intentional violations for false record of duty status. So what you're saying is their hours of violation, I'm a little confused by what you said there, because I'm assuming those were hours of violation issues.
Right, those were false logs. They logged our service, and it was proven through investigation that they were actually not doing what they said they were doing, and so they were written up as a false log.
And so
that's where they came from.
Was this to one driver or multiple drivers?
There were multiple drivers. Generally, what we do when we do an investigation, that we have sample sizes. And obviously it's going to be multiple because there were 34 violations, and we generally do an investigation over the last month. And so one driver, if he, and so it would have been, it depends on the number of drivers we have. And then there's a sample size criteria that we follow through the federal guidelines for sample sizes. And so that's where those were discovered and why there are 34.
Okay, so you're giving us a little bit of an eye look into the investigation as it occurred. Would you consider this a small operation or a large, the Ostmeyer Hay Farm?
Ostmeyer, they've got, would be considered a larger operation.
Do they have somebody on board that is part of their safety person? Okay, all right.
Yes, they do.
Okay, so again, it's a lot of different things in this one. And one, the overweight violations has a direct ramification on the highways in this state. And that's why weight limits are put on so that the damage is not so great to the roadways. But I would agree with Commissioner King. Kudos to the staff. I'm sure it's very disheartening to go back and realize that a company that you're reviewing again has not pulled itself out of the bucket, but chooses to remain there and have these violations. With that, I do recommend approval of this order and the fine that we are assessing.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the described order in this docket. Is there any further discussion? I would just add, I concur with everything my fellow commissioners have said, and I think it really drives home the important work our investigators are doing. I mean, it's nice to get a little bit of a look under the hood there. Yeah, Gary, to really understand the detailed work that they have to do in these investigations and audits really of the operations, to understand the violations that are occurring. And it is really important work to make sure that these actions are deterred in the future. So do want to make sure we recognize that work here. So with that, if there is no further discussion, those in favor of approving the motion in this docket for the order in this docket, please vote aye.
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 Aye. The order is approved. Thank you, Gary and Hassan and Mike.
Thank you.
With that, we have reached the conclusion of today's business meeting agenda. If there is no further business to come before us today, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.